Hello viewers and welcome to Asia TV in Conversation with Taha. Today I have Neelima Dalmia Adhaar again in the studio who I interviewed first in her home last week. And we talked about the secret life of Kasturba, which is the third book Neelima has written. The second book she wrote was Merchants of Death, and her first book is Father Dearest. So today we will be discussing Father Dearest with Neelima. Neelima, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. First, could you tell me please that in your book, have you discussed how did he make his first million? Because a lot of youngsters out watching our show will really want to know.
I did, although I have to admit that when I started writing this book, because I'm a psychologist,
Right.
and my father's rags to riches story is part of economic history of India.
That's very good.
I did not want to go too deeply into it, but I will tell you a small incident which sets the kind of mood for my father's, the entire flavor of this book. I wanted to really understand what is it that makes this man who he is? What is it that makes him tick? What was his pursuit? What was his thirst for getting married to so many people? Was it just a heightened libido? Was it something else that he was looking for? So that was the whole focus of my research. But yes, I have to say this to you, because I feel that when luck favors you, even your mistakes turn into money.
It does.
And the turning point in my father's life was, it was a mistakenly sent telegram to the London Stock Exchange.
Wow.
In very brief, I'll tell you that he had met an astrologer, and my father was greatly into astrology, and he believed in all this kind of alternative stuff, as I call it. And this astrologer told him that you are going to become a Lakhpati. So we're talking of the early 30s then.
Exactly.
So Lakhpati was
today's billionaire. Yes.
And he said, I'm going to say it in Hindi, कि क्यों मजाक करते हो पंडित जी? लाख की बात करते हो, मेरे पास तो बस में आने के पैसे नहीं है. So he said, नहीं, you are going to become a billionaire.
Right.
Anyway, so while he was working with his uncle, he got a tip that the price of silver is going to go up. But he didn't have the money to buy that silver. So he went to this astrologer and told him that why don't you invest and buy silver? Because this price is going to go up and you don't have to give me anything. Just give me 200 rupees and the rest you can take. And he wanted him to invest 10,000 rupees that time in the silver. So the astrologer said, no, I'm not going to do it. No, first the astrologer agreed to give him the money. And he made the purchase. Now, I'm not really familiar with how it was done, but I'll just quickly tell you. So he sent a telegram saying, buy silver worth so much. So the price of silver went up. And meanwhile, somebody had poisoned that astrologer's mind, saying that this man is a cheat and a fraud, because he had gone through some losses in silver. He had earned a bit of a disrepute in the market. And he's going to cheat you, and he hasn't bought any silver. He's just taken all the money, and you're going to get nothing. So he called my father then, and he said that I am backing out of this agreement. I'm not going to give you the money. So of course he was devastated. He said, what will I do? Main to barbad ho jaunga, ye mat karo. And he said, you only said I'm going to become a billionaire. So obviously you don't believe your own words and this, that and the other. Anyway, it all fell on
your business is flawed.
Exactly, not mine. So that fell on deaf ears, and he sent a telegram. I may be a bit confused on the facts, Taha, because I've written that a long time ago and I haven't read it recently.
Not a problem.
But he apparently sent a telegram to them saying, cancel the purchase. That order not to be done. That telegram got fuzzled somewhere on the way, and they read it as double the purchase.
Oh, wow.
So I tell you, this is really like playing roulette on a table, is that you're just playing sixes.
Amazing,
And apparently that soon after that, so that purchase was doubled, and soon after that the silver market shot up. And he made his first million or whatever. And then he became the king, and everybody, suddenly, like friends of fair weather, everybody came crawling up to him. People he had never seen, people who used to, who hated him or shunned him, all suddenly became his friends, suddenly acquired a whole new bevy of relatives. And he used to often say that to me, that he said that friends who are with you only when you're in your good times, shun them.
Very true.
And this is not the first time. So just in a small, in one line, if I just sum it up, what I've just said is, that when the time is right, even your mistakes turn into money.
It does.
And he used to often say that. So
Yeah.
that was the start of his career. As
Okay.
he was crowned Silver King that time of Calcutta. And he never looked back.
And that was the British capital of India.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure the news.
The whole trading capital. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what was the next step after that? What did your father do with his first million then?
Then he branched into other kinds of industry, because from there then he moved on to Bihar.
Okay.
And then he set up a whole, because he had the backing. He made a lot more money in silver, so he stayed in that business for a long time. And then he branched on to Bihar and to other parts of India, where he set up the first sugar mills. And then, you know how it is that when you're working with a huge, big a bank balance, if I can call it that, then it's easy for him to trade. And all he could think of was expansion. And there's nothing, I don't think there was any industry at that time in India which he hadn't taken over or he hadn't started. Like he was a pioneer in cement. He had paper, he had textiles, he had rolling stock, he had steel, he had everything. You just name it and he had it.
Right. And did the British ever try to stop him or take him down? Because, you know, they must have seen someone becoming so strong all of a sudden.
No, unfortunately, the whole irony is that the British never tried to stop him or take him down. It was our own government. It was Nehru who took him down.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And there's a whole story behind that, is that my father was very close to Jinnah.
Okay.
And my father always felt, even though he was a staunch Hindu himself, and he and Jinnah had, it was a very strange relationship that they had. They were polar opposites.
Okay.
Jinnah was a drinker. He wore these beautiful linen suits. We all know what kind of a lifestyle he had, what kind of a persona he had.
Yes.
My father was a practicing, devout, staunch Hindu.
Right.
He was against cow slaughter. He shunned alcohol. He everything that Jinnah did, my father didn't. And the only thing which Jinnah's religion allowed him to do was take many wives.
Yeah,
which he didn't. And my father went on to take 6 wives.
Right.
So that is how polar opposites they were.
At the end of the day, opposites attract.
Sure.
That's the law of the universe.
So he was very close to Jinnah, and he always propagated that Jinnah should be Prime Minister.
Okay.
The conflict between Nehru and him started long before independence. It was an ego clash.
Right.
When Motilal Nehru ji died, my father sent a check of some amount of money to Pandit Nehru and said that you can use this for the cause and for the freedom. And Nehru being Nehru, he was, I don't know, he got miffed by that or something happened. He sent the check right back saying, I don't want any unearned money from you.
Okay.
So that was the first rebuff between them.
Right.
Then the whole thing escalated. My father had an interest in a newspaper which is now currently in it's in a bit of a controversy. I'll tell you, it'll just come to me.
Okay.
And he gave a job to Feroz Gandhi at that time in the newspaper.
Okay.
And at that time, on Nehru's insistence, he had funded that paper and the National Herald, I think.
The National Herald, yes.
And so that whole conflict, it became very ugly between him and Nehru.
Okay.
And finally, when partition happened, when when Jinnah left from India, Jinnah sold his house on 10 Aurangzeb Road to my father.
Wow, okay.
Because he didn't think anybody else was worthy enough. And Jinnah was a man of, he was a man of good taste. He was a man who liked good living. And so that beautiful house was then sold to my father. And even Dominique Lapierre in Freedom at Midnight have mentioned this, that the DC-10 took off with Jinnah to Karachi on the 15th of August. It was 14th of August, 1947. And a green flag anti-cow slaughter was raised on his last vestiges of his Indian soil, 10 Aurangzeb Road by Ram Krishna Dalmia.
Wow.
So, after that, this whole antagonism with Nehru kind of flared up because the parting just before the British left, my father was obsessed with controlling the media. He felt that if you have your grip on the media, then you can make things happen. You can be influencers in a country, and he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong.
On that note, Neelima, I'm going to take the liberty of telling our viewers, we're going to take a short break here. But what an interesting story. And we are going to talk about this media, newspaper and the book after we return after this short break. See you shortly.